Hello and welcome to the New World Review, your source for everything anime and manga. Today I'd like to take a bit of a step back into the title that was my true gateway into anime as a child, being Dragon Ball. Now an awful lot has changed about this universe, or multiverse I guess, since my glory days with it, but the core fascination with strength and power is certainly still there. So with that in mind, we are going to explore the 5 most powerful characters that this property has to offer. And they're all pretty damn insane. Far beyond any form of conventional power measurement, but we're here to do our best with what we've got. And don't worry, I'm not going to go balls to the wall and power scaling, pointing out why it does or doesn't work, no. This is going to be a much more casual exploration of power, so with that out of the way, let's begin. Welcome to the top 5 most powerful characters in Dragon Ball. Number 5. Zenos Attendants. These two figures are probably the most mysterious characters we'll be encountering here today, who act extremely seriously and in unison at seemingly all times. In fact, they very rarely speak at all, although they have briefly uttered the words Bai-cha, which was translated to later gators in the Funimation dub, which is a very interesting contrast to their rather stoic nature, quite possibly informed by the individual whom they guard. Now, very unfortunately, we've not really seen any demonstration of power from this dynamic duo as of yet, but you'd think that to be charged with the protection of the most important being in the entirety of existence, that they'd have to be pretty damn strong, yeah? Well, maybe not. Because there's also another argument that their purpose is not to protect Zeno at all, but rather to protect everyone else from the Omni King, because it is highly unlikely that they would be able to do anything that Zeno could not. However, what we can more or less confirm is that these attendants are more powerful than the gods of destruction, as both Beerus and Champa were quite shocked and intimidated by them, so much as making a move when they blocked Goku's approach to Zeno. And there are plenty of other theories about them out there in the world in regards to the possibility of them being fallen angels whose universes were destroyed, but the key thing that has me placing them in the number 5 position is the fact that the angels we've seen so far in the series seem to by and large be unconcerned with Zeno's antics, whereas these two attendants are known to stress out quite a bit, much in the same manner as the gods of destruction. So without further confirmation, I certainly can't bring myself to place anybody not already on this list above them in terms of power, but at the same time, given the knowledge we have about the other 4 contenders, I certainly cannot place these attendants any higher here today. Number 4. Wheeze. I feel like we know we're in for something special with Wheeze appearing this far down the list because he is already absolutely insane in every way. As an angelic attendant, Wheeze is automatically on a higher plane of power than even the gods of destruction, and has been known to casually brag about being the fastest being in the universe. As such, Wheeze is so powerful that he actually trained Beerus, as well as Goku and Vegeta these days, although none of the 3 have even come close to scratching the sheer absurdity of power within Wheeze's possession. And to illustrate this, we have some words from Mr. Toriyama himself, who treated us to a vague power scaling, saying that if we were to consider a Super Saiyan God as a 6, and Beerus, Universe 7's God of Destruction, as a 10, then Wheeze sits at an incredible 15. However, it is not simply raw power that lands Wheeze in such a commanding position, but also his extended and varied godlike abilities. A great example of which would be that Wheeze is able to rewind time by up to 3 minutes with his temporal do-over, as well as craft interdimensional portals, warp through space and time, and even see events happening in those particular spaces and times. Furthermore, Wheeze's very existence makes the primary use of the titular Dragon Balls redundant, as he is capable of completely resurrecting people, and even strange utility techniques like warping a baby out of its mother's womb in order to save her the time and trouble of childbirth. Plus, he can also access Ultra Instinct, and so much more. A much better question would be to ask exactly what Wheeze cannot do. And in that regard, all I can really find on that comes from Beerus, who claims that Wheeze cannot sing. Finally, something that he and I have in common. But regardless, Wheeze is a vessel of truly inconceivable power, and we've still barely begun. Number 3. Vados. Moving right along, but not moving too far, we have Wheeze's older sister and the angelic attendant of Universe 6. Now, in comparison to Wheeze, not an awful lot is known about Vados. However, for a decent comparison, when the gods of Universe 6 and 7, being Champa and Beerus respectively, got into a fight over a puff fruit, both Wheeze and Vados were able to put a stop to their battle, which had the potential to destroy, a mere entire universe, simply by providing them with a swift chop on the neck. And along with being the strongest figure present in Universe 6, this would imply that at the very least, Vados and Wheeze are about equal in terms of power. However, this opinion does differ greatly depending on who you ask. Vados herself claims, somewhat modestly, to be slightly stronger than her younger brother. However, this is met by great objection from Wheeze, who casually points out that it has been a millennium since the two have trained together, which, while it may be difficult to speak for modern day, certainly implies that a millennium ago, Vados was indeed Wheeze's superior. In fact, at the time of this recording, the only thing we have that even comes close to some sort of official statement would be her profile in an article in V-Jump entitled Preparing for the Tournament, which goes on to vaguely state that her true strength may indeed indeed be greater than that of Wheeze. Whatever the case, this actually makes Vados the strongest female character examined so far in the entire Dragon Ball series. Well, without knowing the quantity of the other female angelic attendants anyway, but I'm afraid that power alone does not even come close to supremacy on this list. Number 2. The Great Priest. Keeping things in the family, next up we have the father of both Wheeze and Vados, and in fact all of the angels, with the Great Priest. Now, interestingly enough, we do have some official confirmation on where exactly Mr. Priest ranks in the world, having been said by Wheeze to be considered one of the top 5 most powerful beings within the entire multiverse, which, makes an awful lot of sense. I mean, think of everything that Wheeze and Vados are capable of, and then go on to imagine the staggering power that was capable of bringing them into existence. In fact, Wheeze quite openly admits to being absolutely nothing compared to the insanity of existence that is his father. Although it should be stated that within the Dragon Ball Super manga, Wheeze goes into slightly more detail, claiming that the Great Priest is the strongest warrior in the multiverse, which is semantically intriguing because of the clarification of warrior, which obviously implies that in the specific art of combat, the Great Priest would be unmatched. But that does not necessarily make him the pinnacle of power in the multiverse. And how could it really, considering that he's still in the number 2 spot here today? But regardless, this being is no joke. He can make gods of destruction quiver in fear with a slight glare, but even with all of that in mind, he's a pretty chill dude. And I mean, why wouldn't you be, when practically nothing in the multiverse is even a slight threat to your continued existence? In fact, the Great Priest even wears the kanji for great on his belt, so we do have a bit of a humble brag happening there. And that sense of humility is exactly what he needs in the presence of the most overwhelming power in the multiverse. But before we get to exactly who that is, I feel like it's important to have some honorable mentions, in this case being the rest of the angelic attendants. We've really only focused on 2 of them during this video, but the other 10 could very well be more powerful than Wheeze and or Vados. It's just impossible to know because we've literally seen nothing of them. All that we do really know is that they are superior to the gods of destruction and inferior to the Great Priest. Plus, these 10 angels that we haven't spoken about may not even be the only other angels in existence, as apparently there were once 18 universes, which leaves 6 angels unaccounted for. These angels may have been erased along with their universes, or perhaps they are still out there somewhere, laying dormant. Regardless, they do certainly deserve a mention, but for now let's have them fade all the way back into obscurity as we announce number 1. Zeno. Now, Dragon Ball is a series that has explored the idea of gods from its very early stages. We've had mortals label themselves as gods, great overseers of the afterlife, an even greater presence in King Kai, and even higher levels of that with the Supreme Kai, all of whom were considered quite godlike at some stage before the literal gods of destruction were even introduced. Although even they pale in comparison to the angels, each of whom are nothing compared to the Great Priest, who is even less than nothing in the presence of Zeno. This admittedly adorable character is the epitome of power, known as the Omni King, and this title is for very good reason, as he could wipe out any universe or even the entire multiverse in the blink of an eye should he so wish it. Although quite fascinatingly, despite possessing the ultimate in power, Zeno is not at all a fighter, and despite his infinite abilities, he can have difficulty keeping up with the movements of particularly strong martial artists, which was shown when he was completely unable to observe the speed of Dispo, instead requiring the slow-mo function on his guard pad to properly examine it. With that said, there is certainly no way that any fighter could so much as touch Zeno in combat, and he is said to be completely unkillable, which would certainly make him our first proper god in the series, as nobody prior to him has truly been immune from the whole death thing. Although yes, there are a lot of thoughts out there that have to do with the possibility of Zeno being killable, like the entire idea that he has bodyguards in the first place, but really, if there is a force coming to kill Zeno, then they're probably going to be even less than useless anyway. However, I suppose one possibility does exist, and that is that Zeno could kill himself, which may be a thing because there's 2 Zenos now due to time travel-y stuff. So I guess I should point out that they take joint first place on this list, and it is unknown if they could use their power to erase one another. Not that that is ever likely to happen, because both Zenos get along famously, so for now we'll just have to be satisfied with the idea that Zeno is the pinnacle of everything that ever was, is, and will be, reigning as by far the most powerful character in all of Dragon Ball. But that pretty much does it for the top 5 most powerful characters in Dragon Ball. If you enjoyed this video and the content this channel produces in general, then please do consider donating to the New World Review Patreon, because the support of all of you amazing people is what continues to make this channel possible. And if Patreon isn't quite your style, then please do leave this video a like, share, or subscribe, because it also helps support this channel an incredible amount. And if you'd like to join the fun at any time, then please do head over to my Discord server, where a wide array of shenaniganry takes place on a daily basis. And finally, please do comment with your own strongest characters in Dragon Ball. This has been the New World Review, and I'll see you next time. Of course, I did forget Wheeze's most powerful asset, which is only revealed in the den of weirdness that is Xenoverse 2. And it is, of course, the Poo Staff. And with his supreme mastery of fecal matter, I highly doubt that even the great Zeno could stop him. However, since I've already edited this much, I'm not really going to go back and change it now. So you win this time, Zeno, on a technicality.